the mics. That's all new for all of you who were here before. It's great. Thanks so much. I am, good morning, I'm Councillor Paula Fletcher, and I'm the chair of the Film, Television, Digital Media Board, and I'm here with co-chair Jason Mosek. This is our first team meeting here this morning, Jason.
Go team, thank you.
Clerk has confirmed that we have quorum this morning for our board. We have a lot of people here in person. Hello, all you in-person people, and hello to everybody who's online on screen with us this morning. This meeting number 2 of our board, and I'm advised we can be called to order now. So this is a meeting obviously being held with board and staff members participating in person, like all of you here, and also by video conference. The public is available to attend. We may have some public members here. They can attend in person or they can observe online. They can also make deputations. And I ask anybody for their patience with any technical delays today because of our hybrid meeting. So just a few reminders, asking staff to please keep your video turned off unless you're speaking or answering questions. And members, when you're speaking, please use your microphones, whether you're in person or online. I don't think I have to tell too many members of this committee about microphones and how to use them. I think you're all very good at all of those technical pieces. And if you want to speak, just raise your hand, let me know, and we'll keep a speakers list. If you have any motions for the agenda, please submit them to the clerk. Come and show me, I'll show you how to do that, or email them in if you're online. And although we are in different locations and meeting remotely today, our board would like to acknowledge that the land we're meeting on is the traditional land of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, the Wendat, and many other diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples. We also acknowledge Toronto is covered by Treaty 13 with the Mississaugas of the Credit. We have 5 issues on our agenda today. We have staff updates. We have a preliminary working group meeting updates. We have working groups, strat plan is quite a busy day, and public appointments to the board. So I am just going to start today with letting you know a tiny bit of good news, although I think probably you all know it already, and many of you were there. I recall seeing you there. Very big announcement, which includes the Amazon Pinewood announcement and Movie Maker magazine naming the announcement for Pinewood and Amazon. Who was there at that? Quite a few people. It was very exciting. It was a full house. And weren't you there, Jason? Oh, online, anybody there? Put your hand up. Well, anyway, a few of us were there, and it was very exciting. It's a very big deal. It's the Pinewood site that Pinewood was running, now owned by Pinewood, after a long time. All of you who've been familiar with Toronto Film Studios and that saga, it's now very settled. Owner and leaser are the same people, because this is Toronto Portland's land, but it is for a very long time to keep it a site and an asset for the industry. And it was very, very good news. And then Amazon coming in to use the studios. So I'm sure Marguerite will tell us a little bit more about that, but kudos to the Create Teal board that negotiated that, and to our film board and to our film staff for being such a good partner in making that happen. Also, Movie Maker magazine has named Toronto the #1 city to live and work as a movie maker. So all of you who are on that branding and marketing committee, you've got a really good start here with that. So I'd just like now to go to the first agenda item, which is FB 2.1 staff updates. And we have our great staff here. Marguerite's here. Bobby, Jessica are all here to give an update. We also have a presentation. Marguerite, you'll tell us about that. So please take it away.
Thanks very much, Councillor, and I'll throw it to Jessica first to update on communications and promotion.
Good morning, everyone. I'll just add to the Movie Maker magazine announcement. We did some advertising in Variety magazine and the Hollywood Reporter, a full-page ad in each of those publications, timed just at the same time as the announcement. We were able to use really exciting images from Star Trek and from the feature film Brother, that was a big winner in Canada last year. And those were both very successful advertising campaigns. We also were able to amplify all of this news on social media, on our Instagram account. And I'll mention as well, we're working on getting a dedicated XOTO LinkedIn account so that we can further amplify this kind of information.
Thank you, Jessica. And this might be a little bit of an overly tactical request for the film board, but I would say every time an opportunity like this comes up, we struggle to find images that are cleared that we can use in our ads. So anyone who has cleared images that we can use in our ads, please send them on in and give us a library that we can use the next time something amazing happens, because amazing things happen in Toronto all the time, thanks to all of you. The next update I will give, and it's on the IMIT review. So IMIT is the Imagination, Manufacturing, Innovation, and Technology incentive. And what it is it's a rebate on commercial property tax. It is an incentive that is relevant to the film industry because it is utilized to help incent studio developers to develop here in Toronto. It's a 60% currently, or historically currently, it was a 60% rebate on commercial property tax for the first 10 years, enhanced for studios to 70%, for those that are building or expanding their floor plate by a specific percentage. So given the very challenging financial situation in which the city finds itself, and given that all programs are reviewed at a regular cadence, this program is being reviewed, and certain instructions have been given to staff to guide the review, and one of those instructions is to consider reducing the period of time over which the IMET pays out from 10 years to 5. This tax benefit was mostly used to build office space. Oh, how times have changed. So offices will be scoped out of IMIT going forward, but it is still relevant to studios. So we did ensure that the consultants who were doing the initial work on this did reach out to film studios to get their views. So we're very appreciative to those who participated. That will continue throughout this process. This will be a consultative process. Really this update is just to let you know we're on it. And because of that, you are on it too. We'll keep you posted on that. And then the next update is over to Bobby Donchez. Bobby Donchez.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I have the pleasure to announce some extremely exciting positive updates. The first concerning the power drop located at 1751 Lakeshore Boulevard West at Sir Casimir Gazowski Park, which is now available and for productions to tie into and use clean energy. We will be providing, we will be providing more detailed, this is just fresh news, so this is kind of the first announcement. So we'll have more information to cascade to productions, as well as advertising it on our website. So the City of Toronto now has 2 active power drops, one at Ashbridges Bay, and now Sir Casimir Gazowski Park. The second update I have is concerning the Civic Locations Contract Motion, FB 11.1, and I'm happy to report that that is now concluded as well. The Film Office, together with internal divisions and the film industry, we're working together to facilitate easier access to film in City of Toronto-owned facilities. The work conducted was in 3 parts. The first part was surrounding the process and timelines and the intake process to make it a quicker process for productions to access. The second part was surrounding a grid for damage deposits so that productions can be fully aware of of how to budget before they actually apply to use a city facility. And the third part was where the majority of the work was in the legal agreements, just streamlining that document, clarifying a lot of the language to make it easier for productions to gain access. So much like the power drop, this is also very fresh information, so we'll be cascading that down to productions and how the process will work going forward, and we will also be advertising that on our website. And those are my updates. Thank you.
Thank you, Bobby. I just want to note that Bobby made a colossal pile of difficult work just sound very easy. And I want to really thank him and his team for like at least a year's worth of incredibly hard, judicious, well-done work. So thanks to you. And to Magali for foundational work on the power drops. Now you have to pay attention, because I said your name. Next update is Jessica on the LA Mayor's mission.
Okay, so we're into planning the mission to LA this year. As this group knows, it's a really important initiative that we do every year to really promote Toronto as a premier film destination. So this year from May 8th to 10th, Mayor Chow, along with Councillor Fletcher and Councillor Carroll, some film office staff, and 35 or more film industry stakeholders in Toronto will attend the mission to LA. The purpose of the mission is to bring, in LA, is to bring the delegates to arrange meetings with top, current, and potential or prospective clients to talk about the advantages of Toronto and talk about the kind of current state of things and make sure we remain top of mind for those clients. At this point, we've invited delegates, and we can confirm that we have a cross-section of representatives from studios, unions and guilds, post-VFX, finance, and film industry organizations. Along with the meetings that are planned, which are 30 to 35 meetings. We'll have a reception in the evening where we can meet with a broader group and deliver that message to even more stakeholders in LA. That's it.
Thank you very much. The next update, we'll have a staff update from Create TO, but I will ask Councillor Fletcher to introduce that.
Thank you. Many of you are veterans of the Portland's planning framework. You'll remember all the time we spent getting the film industry embedded into the Portlands and what's called the PIC districts, which have to have some film content. The McCleary district is just north of the Pinewood site, and you'll be seeing that. When we had the meeting with Pinewood and realized that this district was starting to get applications and it would be developed, I thought it would be very important that there be a secondary plan that reflects what's to the south, that it's a film-friendly interface on Commissioner Street between the Pinewood site and whatever's going to go on the McCleary site. So working with the city planning and then Create TO, this secondary plan was born out of that. And Create TO is doing that, not city planning, because they're very busy. So this is in order to fast track the secondary plan to make sure that the PIC parts of that plan are embodied there, that the interface between the Pinewood site, the 38 acres, however many it is, across the street and north is going to be working. It doesn't offend the film site. So it's a really important thing. And that's why this is happening so quickly. So Scott Pennington, very happy that you're here to bring this on. I don't know if our Infrastructure and Sustainability Committee will have a chance to look at this, because in the past, we've always had a look at some of these things at committee level. If you remember, we've done that around a number of things in the previous board. And there was an application that came in on the north side of Lakeshore that was turned down by City Council already, sent down to the Ontario Land Tribunal because it was considered to be too early and there was no plan And that was another reason why I felt we needed to advance this as quickly as possible, so we don't get a lot of applications and then get into planning hell while all we're doing is going to the Ontario Land Tribunal when we have no framework for what we'd like to see there. So this is advancing this very quickly, and Scott is here this morning to do that. So thank you very much to CREATE for taking this on behalf of the city. And Scott is the vice president, I believe, of the, basically, you're the Portlands guy. Mr. Portlands is here with us this morning.
Yeah, in partnership with a lot of other staff at our agency. But thank you, Councillor.
I think you can speak up a tiny little bit, Scott, if you can pull
Apologies,
that
everybody.
microphone closer.
So thank you, Councillor, thank you, Chair, and thank you to the board. And notwithstanding what it says on this title page, we do know that this is the Film, Television, and Media Advisory Board, so apologies for that. But I'm very grateful for the chance to update you on the plan. As Councillor Fletcher said, we are moving quite aggressively to advance the plan today. And we're doing that really in hand in glove with city staff, including Marguerite and her team, city planning, the Waterfront Secretariat, as well as Waterfront Toronto, who has a key role to play as the overall revitalization lead for Toronto's waterfronts to ensure that this work integrates well with other plans within the geography. As well, this area, as folks who live or travel down to the Portlands are well aware, is undergoing a massive transformation, including part of the McCleary District. That work through the Portlands Flood Protection Project, that work is due to be completed by the end of this year. So we're really kind of at the precipice of a major period of change, particularly south of Lakeshore. So I'm going to race through a few slides that just summarize the plan that we're working on today. But what I really want to emphasize here is the point that that the chair made, which is that we are not just interested in ensuring that this area is a good neighbor to the surrounding developments, particularly to the south with the Pinewood expansion, or with Pinewood and the potential for future expansion, and other studios in the geography, but also that it's a complement to what we see as the heart of the film industry in this part of Toronto. I think everyone's well aware that this is one of the most important, if not the most important, film cluster within the city of Toronto, and that's something that we're very committed to protecting and strengthening into the future. So this, when we talk about McCleary District, we're talking about a fairly large geography. It's about 50 acres worth of land if you include the park and the transfer station at the far eastern side. But really what our area of focus is on the west end. We see a huge opportunity here, not just to set the right regulatory framework for how development will occur through private proposals, as again was mentioned at the top, but through a proactive city and CREATE-TO-led development vision, because thankfully we are the majority landowner in this geography. We own about at least half of the land outright, so there's an opportunity for us to make sure that we get this right now and into the future. In terms of the precinct plan itself, and this is what we're focused on this year, it's effectively a very detailed planning document that will summarize what the policy objectives will be for the future growth anticipated in this area. Right now it's primarily low density industrial or vacant land, but we anticipate, and what's spelled out in the Portlands Planning Framework, which is the overarching policy document developed in 2017 by the city to guide future growth in this area and the rest of the Portlands. What this area is defined for is what we call PIC mixed use, which is production, innovation, creative mixed use. So while we anticipate that residential will be a key component of the development a major part of it will also be support for a range of different employment uses, and among which is of particular importance is, of course, the film and media industry. So there's actually minimum targets that are spelled out in the planning framework in terms of what will be achieved here. I'll also emphasize that we are very sensitive to the proximity of this area to Pinewood, to other studio spaces. And so that's going to be a key part of this plan as we think about the block and road layout, as we think about massing and densities, because we recognize that there's going to be concerns about how development's going to occur here to complement and avoid conflicts with the adjacent area. We also, though, want to explore opportunities where we can support what exists there today through film-friendly streets and public spaces, through floor plates that can support a range of different film and film-related uses. We're also looking at a key component of affordable housing, which we know is of interest to the industry. So there's a number of ways, and there's probably a long list of things that I'm not even anticipating right now that we want to make sure that we're accounting for in this policy framework. So that's the objective, but I really want to emphasize here that we at Creatio, our board, as the chair can attest, are very committed to the future of the film industry in the Portlands, and we think that the McCleary District, as really the last major piece of the puzzle here, is a key component in ensuring that future health. Right now we have I think it's about 34 sound stages in the south of Eastern and Portlands area. Roughly half of those, actually I think it's exactly half of those, exist on Creatio lands, primarily in Studio City and Pinewood. We're anticipating a major expansion of that capacity. We're going to see close to doubling of the number of sound stages with the Basin Media Hub being developed, with future potential expansion of Pinewood, not to mention all the other studios, CineSpace, Revival, et cetera, that are in the area and have plans for the future. So, by the end, we expect there to be close to 1 million square feet of soundstage space, a significant footprint of back of office or back of house workshop support space, and that's all a really key component of the economic vitality of the Portlands. It's really right now the economic engine of the Portlands, and that's something that we want to make sure is supported and complemented. So what we're doing as a part of this study is a market analysis to really understand how can we complement what's there today and what's planned for the future in terms of other forms of film supporting spaces. We also want to understand, though, and this is really where the conversations with Marguerite and the advisory board and the groups that you represent is really key. We want to hear from you in terms of what should we be considering, because we will get the numbers, we'll get the quantitative analysis in terms of where do we see areas of future demand, but we want to be able to ground truth that in terms of understanding what is there actually demand for in the industry right now that we can accommodate here, whether it's directly in terms of space or the types of spaces that we're going to have the opportunity to create. So that's really the long and the short of what we're hoping that's the conversation we're hoping to begin today. And what we've, on this last slide, we're going to be having, we're at the beginning of this exercise, but our intention is to start having some more public-facing engagement on this relatively soon. We're planning to go to a waterfront design review panel in March, at the end of March, but we'll be returning a few additional times with more detail. We're also planning a public engagement later this spring. But that's not, of course, the only opportunity for us to have this discussion. We'll be working through Marguerite and team to make sure that there are different channels in which the plan can be influenced. So I'll leave it there and open it up for any questions or thoughts from the group. Thank you.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Hi, Sarah Farrell from Pinewood. Hi, Scott. How many different landowners are situated within the McCleary district? Do you know offhand?
So as I said, Cratio is the major landowner. The city has a few spaces, obviously the park and the transfer station. There are, if I can say off the top of my head, I would say there's at least 4 to 5 private landowners. Those blocks between Bouchette and Salter
Yeah.
have a range of different landowners. I believe there's 3 separate landowners that are on the immediate east side of Salter, and then there's another landowner just at the corner of Bouchette, the southwest corner of Bouchette and Lakeshore.
Okay, thanks.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Magali.
You mentioned the film-friendly ideas, and the film industry and the film board and the film office in the past years did a lot of work iterating what those aspects could look like in one district or many. Do you, are you working with some of that?
Yeah, absolutely. So I should mention that we are working from a really strong foundation of policy here, both through the planning framework, but also there are urban design guidelines that have been developed for the PIC areas. They don't directly apply here, but I think there's a lot of learnings that we can take from that exercise, which I understand will be coming to completion pretty soon. But through that process, there's been a lot of focus on those film-friendly components. So yes, absolutely, that's something that we would incorporate into the plan.
That's good, and welcome to this world, Scott, because it was this board that developed the film-friendly pieces.
Absolutely,
so
understood.
You probably didn't know that, but now you do.
Okay.
So they certainly know what they're doing, and I want to know when we will be having a chance for that infrastructure group to dig in to the plan. I don't see it on your next step, so perhaps you could come back with that.
More than happy
and
to.
build that in. Marguerite will build that in, so that that oversight that's worked so well on Portland's planning framework is there, and then all the board members understand when this is traveling through the city process, when to intervene, how to support it, etc. And if anything looks like it's going south, to come in and rescue that, which we've had to do a few times, as you all know. We've ridden to the rescue for the film industry quite a few times. The other thing I just want to let everybody know is that it's a very large site, so it's how many did you just say, 50 acres, Scott?
Yeah, it's 50 acres.
50, so that's considered an extremely large site. On all of these large sites, over 5 acres, so we've got definitely meeting that threshold. There's a requirement for affordable housing. It's a 20% requirement. You probably know on the Villiers Island, I've moved that up to 30%, and now Waterfront Toronto is looking at that. I'm not sure what we'll call that here. Well, it'll be 30%, quite possibly. We'll want to see that because we own so much of the land. We have a good ability to require that. The other thing then would be, I think, from this board, if you wanted to introduce some notions of sector housing, and that would be just like we have artist housing or creative industry housing, that could be something that would get put into this plan. Because as we know, as young people are coming into the industry, sometimes they're getting priced out in the city of Toronto. So because this is a brand new precinct plan, it is related to PIC. We are thinking about very much this mere affordable housing and the percentage that would have to be here. I would encourage us to find a way to insert that very interesting idea of having sector housing for creative industries, particularly film and related industries here. Okay, does that make sense?
Madam Chair.
Yes, yes, madam. I can't see you, but I hear your voice.
Yeah, maybe it's my layout. I don't have on here how to raise my hand. So I did want to ask a question of Scott.
Back to the board, please. The Hollywood Squares board, thank you. Dating myself now. Oh, I thought it would be up here, main screen. There we go. There's everybody here today. Thank you. You kind of have to put your hand up and I'm supposed to see it, but Can we not get that, Scott?
Yeah.
Pardon? There we go. There's everybody there. Thank you very much. All right, Councillor Carroll, yeah.
Oh, thank you. I just wanted to ask, Councillor Fletcher will know this, being a councillor down on the waterfront, but for those of us who don't interact with CreateTO as often, and I ask this only because I didn't realize you have 4 or 5 private owners in that precinct area. What does it mean when the plan is being done by CreateTO, not city planning? Do we have the same sort of policy strength such that, you know, if one of the private applicants does come in the middle of executing this plan, do we have the same sort of policy oomph to say you're going to have to wait till this plan is done, such that you know, if they had a use that looks like it's going to be somewhat hostile to the intentions of the plan, we can say to the land tribunal, we're in the middle of this plan, they have to wait, and have that be respected, despite the provincial planning policy timelines.
So thank you, Councillor, for the question. So yes, I mean, effectively, there's actually no difference between CreateTO delivering the plan or city staff. In that, when we come forward to council with the precinct plan and the enabling bylaws, it will be a city-led process. So we are acting as the city's agent, so to speak, in terms of delivering this. Everything that we do here is in lockstep with city staff. I think, as the chair noted, this is really a capacity issue for city planning. So we have a unique interest because of our ownership. We have a unique perspective because of the relationships we have in the area and the broader geography. But from a regulatory standpoint, there's no difference. It's actually not dissimilar from the Villiers Island area, where Waterfront Toronto was a key part in delivering the precinct plan there, but it was a city-led, or it's a city implemented precinct plan.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. That's my only question. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Great. I'll just add that this came out of an office meeting in my office, telling city staff to get the precinct plan started, and they said they wouldn't be able to start for at least 18 months. So our CreateTO was there and said, please, you undertake it. So definitely it's being undertaken on behalf of the city in order to make sure we don't get exactly what you said, that all of a sudden we have all these applications and now we have no plan yet. So it was a little late. I wasn't too happy about the fact that it had never been started, but it has been started, and thank you very much, Scott, for being here today. So I guess that we'll understand the next steps when there'll be the involvement, and I think through our infrastructure committee, whenever that can meet to review that before it is finalized and go anywhere, that's generally the process that we've used, right? Yes? Yes, great. Okay, no more questions? Fantastic. Thanks so much for being so fast on getting this going. Once it got going. Great, thank you. I'm going to throw that to Jason to introduce item 2. Oh, sorry. Do we need to receive that report? I think we will just move to receive that report from CreateTO, and Cynthia's doing that. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you so much. Okay, working groups. Jason.
Thank you, Madam Chair. For those of you that may be familiar, the Film Board has historically operated with a number of working groups that provide input and strategy to this board on key areas that, you know, have been identified. We draw on not only people on this board, obviously, but also people from the sector at large to provide that input to us here. So there have been some very preliminary meetings of a couple of those working groups to date. Maybe I can throw to Marguerite to provide a bit of an update on those.
Thank you, Mr. Mozak. I'm going to catch that and pass it over to Magali Simard, who will be doing a report.
My apologies.
On no, exactly.
That is going to
like
Jessica. That is going.
Much. So yes, we had a preliminary, I would say, working group meeting around infrastructure and sustainability. I know that the staff and the board at large will probably like officialize what the working groups are. It's not the finite result of who we were in that meeting, but we wanted to kickstart, not to waste time this year, to talk through the broad strokes of priorities we might want as a board and as a group to tackle this year and pay attention to. This is just the beginning. We met for, I think, an hour and a half or something like that, and it could have been longer. So I'll present the sort of major points that were discussed. And again, this list of points will probably get elongated in the coming months. First, IMIT, I don't want to dwell too much on that. The update was made by Marguerite earlier. But it is important as in terms of developments and attracting either major renovations on studio space or new studio spaces. IMIT is the one financial incentive that comes out of this city. So it's worth double downing on how we feel as an industry this is important. We gracefully were invited to participate in all these consultations, and I think we've made the point very well of the importance of having a very tangible incentive out of a municipality. Very few cities do it in North America and in the world, so that's something to hang on to. We discussed certainly the roller coaster that many of us, all of us, have been in the past year and certainly the past years, and now what we see as a pretty intensely fluctuating level of occupancy in the industry at large, but certainly in the spaces themselves. So it's important to keep an eye on the ratios of occupancy, study what types of infrastructure seems to attract the most and not be so affected by some of these external forces. And as we sort of like study the inventory that we have in the city, which is something we did some years ago, is assess what kinds of stages and spaces are most needed on top of what we have now. So which ones go out first, which ones get occupied first is probably the ones that we need the most of in the future. So as some developments that were announced move their timelines and the realities of the landscape have been sort of like bulldozed over in the past year and a half, we should probably like hope to recalculate the numbers that we've been using on current inventory has not changed, thankfully. But the ones that were announced and the new timelines that are probably all have shifted, because the benchmark of how we calculate the total amount of space we have often in the future often affects how we think of workforce numbers, and it kind of trickles down. So it's a statistic that is very important, and we're kind of all probably using one that is a tiny bit outdated. I really want to commend on behalf of the group, and I'm sure many of you outside of this group, Councillor Fletcher, Councillor Carroll, Councillor Morley, the film office, Marguerite, wrangling us big time on employment lands protection. It's a major, major piece. It's essentially the first piece that trickles down whether you can have more studios in the future. So there's been great efforts, especially in the film sort of main area of the port, Southeast, and Etobicoke to protect lands, and I think that was a very strong, very loud piece at the time in the past months, and we're all there for the next one too. So definitely want to emphasize that. And then in terms of city-owned infrastructures, Bobby, you gave the update, and it's just a big, I think, thank you for us speed tracking and simplifying the way people access city-owned facilities, and there are a lot, and they're very desirable, and they're often very unique looking, is important. So I guess we'll just keep pressing on that, but no doubt that you don't need us to do that. You're doing it already. And this is nearly a personal note, because yesterday I was driving down to our studio in the Marine Terminal, and all the new bridges are there, and they look fantastic. It's the first time in years that I think it looks good to drive through the Portland. So I just want to say, take a stroll, maybe not by foot just yet, but in the safety of your car through the Commissioner's Bridge, which you must take all the time, and the new Cherry Street Bridge. It looks fantastic. Like, I think for the first time, for me anyway, the transformation of the area is visible. Like, that's a tangible thing, and it's pretty glorious to drive through these two, or is it three bridges? So that's it on infrastructure. We'll absolutely dive into the McCleary District. The presentation was great. Thank you again. and we'll delve into that before the next meeting for sure. And then on sustainability, obviously a fabulous time for this. There's a lot of initiatives around it. We only began discussing this topic, and we know that it will involve many more people than were in our meeting. We were trying to kind of like do overarching commentaries that really pertain to the city, which is a continued emphasis on access to grid power, whether it's at city locations, so grid power that already exists that can be accessed, at external locations. So I know that there's a grid map that is being created with OGS, and I'm sure you guys are involved. So that's obviously really useful, and the proliferation of power drops in the future. And addendum to power drops as a fantastic topic is perhaps diving into assessing portable and mobile clean power solutions, so that as much as we love power drops, there might be an addendum to that where it's less of a permanent large thing, kind of moves around the city. There's new technologies around that, so I think we'll all want to put our heads down to see what that does. And working with the city and the film office to help tell the story of what greening activities are. We think there's a lot going on. It's not being wrangled yet publicly or industry facing all that much. And we think that the power of the city to talk to the people, really, in the broader sense of the terms, is very real. And ex-OTO givebacks, or whichever way we would probably all advise to do this, I'm not sure, but to tell the stories of the small, medium, and big green activities that are going. And I just want to acknowledge that a lot of the city people work with the Ontario Green Screen very directly. The city is one of the founding members of it. So there's a lot of initiatives that obviously speaks to both organizations, if I can say, and initiatives should continue to flow sort of like properly between the two. But that's it for us for now, I think.
Thank you. Can I throw it to Angela Mastronardi for an update as well on the Workforce Development Working Group?
I pressed it 3 times. Oh, there we go. Okay. Hi. Can I just make one comment? When I was going through the area and I saw the bridges the first time, I thought they were a Star Trek set. Just to continue, we had a preliminary workforce development working group to facilitate the film board. We held our first meeting on February 8th. And just to report a few of things that we concentrated the discussion on. The Skills Development Fund, which unfortunately the city currently is not funded, but will continue working with the ex-OTO Screen Industry Pathways and CE Entertainment Trades and the Shine Network Institute. The working group discussions concentrated on workforce development and physical production through, number 1, apprenticeship and trainee programs, possibly bargained into collective agreements through the unions, and pathways to membership within the unions and guilds in the City of Toronto. We discussed the various guilds apprenticeship programs and their partners with POV and ex-OTO programs, the 2 main unions in the city, training programs, also partnering with the C and Cinecares, which is a Cinespace training initiative focused on underrepresented communities. Our ACTRA has a bursary through Warner Brothers, so there's also bursaries that one can access through companies to cover some of the permit fees that are being charged. Education was a very long topic that we discussed, primarily micro-credentials, with the industry standards being recognized by unions and guilds and those working within that already. Cinespace partnering with York University, where students and university occupying stages at 777, the creation of micro-credential courses in production accountants with the possibility of, and I believe POV and Seneca College courses on Avid training, which if you don't know what that is, that's a post-production way of editing. And virtual production, which is, we definitely have to give a lot of consideration to virtual production. That is going to be the future of the industry. And internships and co-ops with VFX houses, identifying individuals possibly not coming out of educational institutions, but those with incredible computer skills that can translate into real jobs, not, as I said, not through traditional educational institutions. Post-production increasingly becoming a place, Toronto's increasingly becoming a place to post, which is something that's been happening in the last few years, even when that production is not filmed in the city. We recognized some gaps, specific gaps in console operators, entrepreneurships, financial planning, life skills development, hair and makeup for racialized performers. Discussing that with our, possibly with the various schools and industries that actually offer that sort of training within Ontario. Leadership training to fill the needs due to retirement or attrition. Also, due to some tuition concerns with post-secondary educations and under budgetary pressures, that those could be alleviated by accelerating micro-credential programs. Also, the Ontario government has a mandate to increase tangible results that are skills-based. The labor gap needs were indexed against studio growth, but without a clear picture, which I guess that's kind of changed with Scott's report today, but without a clear picture of what that projected growth is going to be, labor needs are going to be hard to define, so a possibility of updating the city's job report and a study would be advisable with projected contraction of content, but that would need to be done in a very timely fashion because it can be outdated very quickly. And basically, we need data, period. And we also talked about marketing in terms of how we market the industry and the importance of the reputational value of, let's say, film schools. And so that would all fall under the marketing of how we market. And we also talked about looking at other countries as models, and in particular the UK. And we had a 1-hour discussion. That sounds a lot to have talked about it in 1 hour, but we did do it. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Angela. Does anybody have any comments or questions for either Magali or Angela with respect to their updates? Seeing none, can I get a motion to accept those reports? Okay. Any in opposition? All in favor? All right. Yes, exactly. Any opposed? Carried. Thank you for that. Moving on to FB 2.3, and I think just maybe perhaps more of a, again, those reports and those meetings that were just given were very preliminary, and I think want to throw to Marguerite and the city in terms of a more formal discussion about the key industry segments that have been identified, including infrastructure and sustainability and workforce development, and outline what those others are and how members can become engaged in the process and provide input to those committees. So Marguerite.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. Okay, so the working groups, I'm just going to, for those who are new, I'm going to give a little bit of an overview of what the working groups are and what they are not. They're actually not formal groups from a clerk's perspective or from a governance perspective. They contain members of the film board and members of the industry who are not members of the film board. We can construct working groups around the issues that we regard as priority issues, and those issues will change term by term. So the working groups are not always the same. And if anything suddenly comes up that is an urgent matter that we don't have a mechanism to deal with, we can immediately start one up. So they are slightly more informal than something like a council advisory body. And also, I should mention, film board members are not obligated to serve on these working groups. We certainly welcome your service on these working groups, but it is not an obligation, just so you know. My team and I, Jessica and Bobby and Colin and Brendan, we've been talking about what we really need to focus on this year based on market realities. The working groups modeled in the previous term were, of course, a good place to work from. So infrastructure and sustainability is one we know we're going to need. The change between this term and the previous term is that sustainability was within a different working group, it was within customer service. We think it needs to be deeply embedded in infrastructure at this point in time. So that's the change there. Workforce development will never change. Given the competitive landscape, given how hard we are going to have to work to ensure that Toronto's market share is stable or growing, irrespective of production volume globally, we're going to need support with regard to marketing and promotion. So that will definitely be one of the working groups we strongly feel we need. Angela just made the point that post-production and VFX work is coming to Toronto for productions that don't shoot here. We are seeing this be progressively more the case, and we want to ensure that we are increasing our service to post-production and VFX and really helping to diversify the parts of the industry that continue to create investment and jobs in Toronto. So the 4 working groups, my team and I, are proposing for the next couple of years, the rest of this term, are infrastructure and sustainability, workforce development, marketing and promotion, and post-production and VFX. So we are calling for film board members who are interested in these groups. We really look for these groups to supply expertise. So that's why for workforce development, we know that the partners that we work with on workforce development initiatives, they're going to be on this group. They've been voluntold. And for infrastructure and sustainability, obviously the studios are essential to have in that group, along with Samantha Lee, of course. Where you feel you have expertise that you can contribute, please do. Please email Jessica, as she's working with me hand in, I was going to say hand in hand, but that sounds a little, not quite right. Yeah, anyway, we're working very closely on the working groups together. So please get in touch, and I would ask the film board now to let me know if you feel that there are any, we do like to limit the number of working groups for manageability, but if you do feel that there's a massive glaring oversight, we would be happy to hear any input you have, any thoughts you have on that.
Thank you, Marguerite. Does anybody have any comments or questions for Marguerite with respect to the working groups? Would anyone like to raise their hand and come forward? Can I put people on the spot? Seeing no comments or questions, somebody put a motion to receive the report? Angela? Second? Gail? All in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you, Marguerite.
Thank you, and I'm sure you'll all be getting a call from Marguerite or Jessica to ask you which committee you'd like to be on and can contribute in that way. Thank you. It's okay. Thank you. We're going to move to the item 4, which you have in front of us, which is the strategic plans. And I'm not sure who was here was a veteran of the original. I think you were, Ben. You were there for that. But it was a long process. We still have our spotlight in Toronto. We had an original, the updated, and this is now looking at how economic development's doing strat plans. And we have with us today Mojan Janfar, Senior Cultural Affairs Officer. I know you're not Adam.
No, Adam's online, though.
Oh, he's online. Okay, Ben McIntosh here, who was the author of our first one, and Adam did the Policy Development Officers. They're going to make this presentation to us today about planning for strat plans. Marguerite, did you want to add anything there?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes. As Mojan and Ben are about to lay out, there are 3 action plans and strategies being worked on right now that are quite large: the culture plan, the economic action plan, and a divisional plan for economic development and culture, the division within which the film office exists. So I wanted to clarify ahead of time, because things are getting quite stratastic in EDC. We are working on a new film strategy this year as well. For the film office, we will be working very closely with the film board on this film strategy. That film strategy is the primary driver for our work. It will align with the digital strategy, but I wanted to, just before they get into their presentation, just situate for you that the film strategy is part of this in an aligned but independent way, and that we will be working very closely with the film board on crafting that going forward, and I'll provide more updates on that when they're done. So thank you, and over to you, Mojan, Ben, and Adam.
Thanks so much. So if you hear Adam's voice as a sort of distant voice, he's virtual. I guess you just can't see his video right now. Thanks so much. So yes, my name is Mojan Janfar. I'm a Senior Cultural Affairs Officer. It's not easy to hear me? Okay, is that better? So yes, my name is Mojan Janfar. Nice to see some familiar faces and to meet the rest of you. I'm a Senior Cultural Affairs Officer in Economic Development and Culture, leading this file. Do you want to introduce yourself, Ben?
Interesting. Great to see many of you again. My name is Ben McIntosh. I'm Manager of Cultural Partnerships with the city. So working alongside Mojan on the culture plan. And as the councillor mentioned, I was involved in developing the first spotlight on Toronto. So really looking forward to working with all of you again on this this next version.
And Adam, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes. Good morning, everyone. My name is Adam Didich. It's a pleasure to be here today. I'm a Policy Development Officer in the Economic Development and Culture Division, co-leading the development of the Action Plan for Toronto's economy. Over to you, Mojan.
So as Marguerite mentioned very briefly, so there are 3 strategic documents that we're working on in EDC, and we just wanted to provide a bit of an overview of them to you and the engagement process and sort of preliminary results of what we've heard through some of the engagement, as well as next steps. Hopefully this isn't too complex, or I mean, even for us, sometimes it's a little complex on how these are all connected. So ultimately, these are the 3 documents that we have. Is there's a divisional strategy, there's the action plan for Toronto's economy, as well as our culture sector strategy as well. And these 3 will really be working together hand in hand, and they do offer different, they cover different sectors and different perspectives. And the divisional strategy is very much an internal type of document. So to really guide within economic development and culture, or EDC for short, sort of how we operate, how we deliver programming, and sort of our customer service based direction. Then we have the action plan for Toronto's economy, which would be focused on the economic development and economic sector, and then the culture plan. And these 3 documents will be sort of feeding into each other and will speak to each other in the sense that they're supporting EDC's divisional directions and priorities. As an addition to this process, is we do have existing City of Toronto strategic documents, as well as sector-specific strategies. So as Marguerite was mentioning, the film strategy, there's the work through the night economy work that's going to have direction and recommendations, and these will feed into the work that we're doing. Those documents will have sort of sector-specific direction and recommendations, whereas the culture plan and the economic plan will be broader direction that will include creative industries and film, but also other culture sectors. So nonprofit arts and culture, museums and cultural heritage will all be under the umbrella of the culture plan as well. Other documents that are feeding into this process are broader city strategic documents like our reconciliation action plan and our confronting anti-Black racism plan and other documents. Hopefully that's clear as mud, as clear as it can be in terms of how these documents are sort of interconnected and intertwined. A bit of just at a high level, the action plan for Toronto's culture sector really will provide direction on arts and culture with an emphasis on access, inclusion, and equity. Our action plan for Toronto's economy is broader, looking at sort of economic, providing direction really around inclusive and sustainable economic impact across Toronto. And then again, that divisional strategy is more internal facing, providing sort of direction on our divisional programs, process, and services. Just very quickly at a high level, sort of our timelines. The timelines for these projects are very similar and intertwined, and these are all feeding into each other. So we're currently in this phase 2 process around public and community engagement, and wanted to share early on in this process with you what these documents are, and then come back when we do have actual draft recommendations for you to see where the documents are going and what the directions are. So just at a high level, again, sort of the engagement plan for the document. So I'll talk a bit about the culture plan, and then I'll pass it to Adam to talk about the economic plan. So we do have an external advisory panel with 20 community members. Our co-chair is Councillor Carroll, who I saw online just earlier, as well as Maxine Bailey from CFC. And we also have other representation from the film and creative industries sector as well. So we do have Lucy Lemire from Interactive Ontario, as well as Carrie Swanson from Indigenous Screen Office. In addition to the advisory panel, who throughout this process will help sort of provide strategic advice to the plan and will help provide sort of overarching direction around from like advice and direction from a strategy perspective. We also have been doing extensive public engagement, so we do have an online survey that closes on March 3rd, so if you haven't filled it out, please do. Bijou, I think you filled it out already, so thank you. But we'll share that perhaps, I don't know, maybe I can share it with you, Jessica, you can share it with others if you haven't yet had the chance to fill it out. We did have 2 virtual town halls in February. We had them February 15th and 22nd. We also had some artist-led engagement sessions throughout October and November, and we had these community conversations around specific topics, and also a few that were specifically with community groups, with the Indigenous artists and creatives, with Black artists and creatives, as well as with deaf, mad, and disabled artists. We're actually hosting another session next week with the creative industries, with Marguerite and I believe some of you will be at that session, which would be great, so we can dive more into creative industry challenges. And then we also have this toolkit as well for anyone who'd like to host their own session, which technically we're closing March 3rd, but if you are interested in hosting a session, please let me know. We can extend that timeline as well, so you have some more time to provide feedback. So far, we've had a lot of high numbers in terms of engagement. When we come back in July, I'll be able to share a bit more detail and breakdown on the sort of demographics and who we've been engaging so far. But in terms of representation, so we've had about 30% from the creative industries representation on the survey, and 20% from film sector. And yeah, so pretty good representation from across sectors. Keeping in mind that the culture plan is crossing various sectors, including not-for-profit arts and museums and cultural heritage. Adam, if you're there, I'll pass it on to you for the economic plan.
All right, thanks very much, Mojan. So in terms of engagement, the action plan for Toronto's economy has 3 general public engagement touchpoints. First, through an economic advisory panel. Second, through a public survey. And third, through sector-specific public engagement sessions. The latter of which has been largely supported by our consultant, the Canadian Urban Institute. The economic advisory panel included approximately 26 industry leaders and subject matter experts who provided advice from a variety of industry perspectives, which also included creative industries. So here, of note, executives from Spin VFX and Universal Music Canada participated in panel discussions. In addition to the panel, a public survey launched approximately 2 weeks ago and was live on 2 city websites, the Have Your Say and the Action Plan for Toronto's Economy landing page. And this survey gave the public an opportunity to provide feedback, and that survey concluded just yesterday. In addition to the survey, dedicated public engagement sessions provided insight from a wide variety of small business owners, creative industries, and cultural organizations. With respect to creative industries, Stitch Media and Ubisoft, among others, have provided feedback. And so with that, I'll turn it back to my colleague Mojen, who will provide an overview of what we've heard from other council advisory bodies. Thank you, and over to you, Mojen.
So just so you're also aware, we are sharing this information with other council advisory committees as well. So we have gone to the various committees listed, and we will come back to the next committee session. I think it's July 11th. Sorry, July 11th, 5th. Sorry, whichever, the next one in July, and we'll share the draft recommendations. Sorry, Margaret, were you going to say something? Okay.
Mojen, sorry, I was just going to ask you to please make the point that you are in the process of making, which is that you're coming back to Film Board in July with the findings, so that for comment and participation. So
yes. Sorry. So yes, so we will come back when we do have the draft recommendation, so you can actually see what that is for your review and for your feedback.
All right, so I'm going to also share a little bit about what we've heard so far, just a few of the bigger picture directions. So, and again, to frame this, the film strategy is going to be the document that has the really detailed actions about the film, television, digital media sector. The culture plan, we are going to be looking for sort of those bigger picture policy directions that cut across different sectors, and these are a few of the ones that we've heard about so far. So it'll definitely not come as no surprise to this group that we're hearing a lot about access to space. Challenges around finding affordable, accessible space for culture, not just for working, but also for living. I will say, Mojen and I were really excited to be watching your meeting online earlier and hearing you talk about the potential for sector housing in the McCleary district. We've been hearing a lot about that kind of need through our consultations, and it's a really exciting potential direction to explore. And also for this committee, and we know there's been so much work done over the last few years to increase the supply of studio space in the city. So these are the kinds of lenses we might be able to take when we're exploring directions related to space and figuring out what will ultimately go into that plan. Another point we've heard quite a bit about is distribution of funding and opportunities to access city funding. This might be something that's more applicable to maybe some of the independent filmmakers or media artists who are accessing funding for creative projects through the Toronto Arts Council or through other city programs. But there's a real sense of a need to be able to increase our supports for new and emerging artists and organizations, offer more funding related to experimentation and innovation. So we want to see how we can think differently about our funding programs and what potential changes we can make on that front. We've also heard a lot about sort of the other supports that feed into the to the economy and culture. Transportation, for example, is something that's coming up a lot in our consultations, and how transportation investment and the overall system of transportation, traffic, and congestion are impacting different sectors, and how they are how it either supports or impedes their activities. So we do also want to think about sort of the bigger picture. City systems that feed into culture and the economy. We've also heard the need about more opportunities for cultural experience year-round. So lots of great events happening this summer. What can we do outside that space? And how can that maybe feed into increased tourism in the city? We've also heard a lot about emerging technologies and creative practices, which I'm sure will definitely be of interest to this group. So many questions around how new technologies are changing the way artists and creatives are working in the city, and also how businesses are going about their own work as well. So we've definitely got some work to do to think about what kind of policies we can look at the city to help support adaptation and innovation in the realm of those new technologies. We're also hearing the need for greater research and impact around culture, creative industries. We've actually started a really interesting partnership with the University of Toronto School of Cities through this project to look at all the data we have about the different cultural industries in Toronto and how they've changed over the last several decades. So we're going to be putting out some research alongside this culture plan that sort of paints a bigger picture of what's going on in the sector and what are some of the areas we might need to better support in the coming years. In addition, coming out of the pandemic, we're hearing more about the need for additional connection and community building. So we've heard a lot about how culture is about the experience for people, and a bit of a lingering feeling of isolation coming out of the last few years. So we'll want to look at how we leverage the city's cultural events and experiences to be able to address that, and also maybe look at ways we can introduce community building through other professional programs that we offer. Lastly, and I know this is another one that's come up quite a bit at this group, is the need for additional support for workforce development. So we're hearing consistently about the need for capacity building, professional development, and mentorship for emerging professionals, and we'd love to build on a lot of the great initiatives that have been rolled out over the last few years. So that's a little snapshot of what we've been hearing so far. We'll definitely be coming back to the committee with much more detailed information once we've completed our engagement. But I think we've been getting a lot of great input so far, and we're really looking forward to digging into what might come next.
Adam, was there anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, the only other piece that I would add to this that we're hearing from our sector-specific engagement sessions with respect to the creative industries is around the inability to retain and attract talent because of the affordability issue here in Toronto. So simply put, it's there's a high cost of living. It's expensive to live in Toronto. And because of that, there has been an ongoing risk of folks migrating to other areas, both within Canada as well as in the States. So New Jersey was noted as a huge draw for production, as well as New York City as well.
So that's it for us. We did want to sort of share this preliminary feedback with you and open it for discussion in case there's any feedback you'd wanted to share with us. Do these challenges and issues that we've highlighted resonate? Is there anything that we're missing? And if you also have any questions about the projects and the process, we're happy to take that. There's also Adam and I's contact information as well if you'd like to reach out on anything. If you do want to use that toolkit and host a session and you would like more time, please let me know. I'm happy to support that way. That's it.
Any questions or comments, Cynthia?
Thank you for the presentation. I just wanted to get some more information about the creative industries session on March 5th. Who's going? How did you pick them? What was the kind of outreach to set that up?
So I worked with Mojan on that, and we are putting together a list, a group of people across things like game development, immersive, film production, all the different music, different kind of for-profit creative industries. So it is a list of about 15 people who are attending. So that will be the consultation there. And as we've discussed throughout this process, if we feel we need to keep consulting, we absolutely will keep consulting. So that's why Mojan said the toolkit is still open and we can continue to have more conversations to feed in. You know, we wanted them to make a preliminary presentation to the film board today, and they'll be coming back in July. So there will be multiple opportunities between now and then to weigh in and to make it a conversation.
Anyone else? I just have a few because I'm really unclear how film and digital and TV sector fits in. And you've had 20, I forget how many you said, 20% of the answers to the survey were from film industry. Did I hear that correctly? So how will that be shared with the film board or any of the working groups? So that's unclear. I think we need to do a little bit more work because it's great that you're doing this, but there is a $2.5 billion industry that anchors a lot of the work. So we can't forget that in doing other things that don't have the same economic impact. And I would just want to see how, last time we did the strat plan, we did have a strat plan group that I think was made up of the chairs of some of the committees to help guide that. So I think that would be helpful, because this is a very large plan. So how do we get down to this industry plan, film, TV, digital, and not get subsumed in other things? That is, to me, where we're at now. And we'll pick our, if anybody has any ideas about that, that would be good. Thanks. Megalee?
Yeah, that's a great question, Councillor Fletcher. And for me, it's like seeing a lot of strat plans, like I think I understand how they feed into each other, but it's important that the one at the top has some specificity around specific sectors, so that it's not just like each statement applies to 4 industries. That kind of gets lost once you trickle down, like as we will work with you guys to get like the best possible, most precise film plan that is full of minutia and all our details, that does not concern a broader city plan. But as long as I would say the top major buckets do end up in the big city strategy, that's important. Because if not, our thing will kind of scream in the vacuum. Yeah.
So I'd love to speak to that briefly. I'll throw to Mojan and Ben for anything that they want to add. I think the infographic that places the EDC strategy at the top is slightly misleading. The EDC, with all due respect, sorry, the EDC plan is specific to the division and how the division operates, priorities for the division, how the division approaches its work. As you well know from the previous EDC strategy that had 4 pillars. Yesterday I could only remember 3, but it's out of date, that's my defense. But they were space and access, talent and innovation, organizational excellence, and
Equity and inclusion.
Equity and inclusion. So there were 4 pillars that determined how the division did its work. So they were not pillars that were inclusive or exclusive of any sector or any activity. So the divisional strategy has that kind of an orientation. The economic action plan and the culture plan, based on the conversations we've had about them so far, which are at this stage still very preliminary, and Adam up in the clouds, Ben Mojan, certainly add your views if mine are different from yours. But my view is that these are more conceptual, broader documents. Some of the themes that are being looked at are themes that the city does not unilaterally have the ability to entirely control. They are big picture documents. But the EDC document will be quite specific to the division. Now, what we're going to be working on as a film office and a film board with, as the councillor indicated, the working groups and a consultant and the film board as a whole and outreach to industry is the specifics of the film strategy. As you'll recall from the previous iteration of these strategies, the film strategy was about specific tactics that we would undertake to grow the industry. The EDC strategy was about how. So that's why when we undertook the activities that we did for the film board, we undertook them with a specific, of the 4 pillars, a specific emphasis on equity, diversity, and inclusion, and talent and innovation, because that was most relevant. Space also, but for us, space doesn't mean we need a list of city-owned spaces for music rehearsal. It means we need to protect employment lands. So that's how they kind of relate. I hope that adds clarity, and more importantly, adds assurance that the film strategy is going to be developed with the film board, with the leads of the working groups, and will respond to our industry's needs. Mojan, Ben, do you want to add anything?
Sorry, no, I think that covers it well. I think also just building off what Magali mentioned, how we do want to make sure that the key pillars of the film strategy feed into the culture plan. So for example, if we looked at the idea of a space focus area, because we're pretty certain that the culture plan is going to include a big focus on space. There might be some recommendations in the culture plan that say, explore housing for artists and cultural industry workers. And that might feed into some of the more specific work that you're doing at the film board level. So we do want to make sure that this all connects really clearly, but also, I think as we're building out the narrative of the document, it is still really important to recognize the unique nature of each of the different sectors that make up what we describe as culture. So ultimately, I think we're all just going to have to work really closely together to make sure we're coordinating on the right documents, but we'll definitely be wanting to make sure we have the film and creative industries lens on all of this.
Yeah, and I just an additional example by way of precision. One of the things that I think we can consider is likely to be part of the film strategy will be marketing and promotion, especially international marketing and promotion. I don't expect that that will necessarily be an emphasis in the culture plan, but it will be in our plan and we will do it. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that there is the independence for us to operate the way that we need to.
Cynthia?
Thank you, Councillor, and thank you for that clarification at the end, Ben, and I know you're an expert at coordinating things, having worked with you before, but I think want to reiterate what I think the councillor was saying, and I think Megley was saying a bit, is that it's very important to have the importance of the film and TV industry reflected in the culture plan, as well as having its own strategy. So I attended the town hall. It was great, very well run, but I was the only film and TV person in my working group. Jason was there as well, but we were also obviously in different breakout groups. So I think that what the councillor was saying about the importance of the industry having, I'll use the word spotlight, why not, on film and TV and its importance in the cultural fabric of the city is really important in that top level culture plan, as well as having our own strategy.
Anybody else? No, I just want to say you've hit that.
Madam Chair?
Yes, go ahead. Sorry,
Madam Chair?
Councillor, go ahead.
I wonder if I can just maybe help a little bit with the clarification. In fact, it actually will, I think, end up that the film sector and so all the screen-based end up represented across the spectrum, which is, I think, why it's a bit confusing today. We felt strongly that the culture plan, we were trying to move both the economic development plan and the culture plan to a point of making sure that these were not just COVID recovery plans, that in fact, the culture plan really needs to be updated for the whole sector. That we're working from a plan dated 2011 at the moment, and so a whole host of things have changed and accelerated, of course, by the pandemic. But it's just plain, it was time for an update anyway. Likewise, the economic development plan. That's why we're sort of looking at as Marguerite mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we're rethinking how to use IMIT. Not just from an affordability concept, but is it attracting to the City of Toronto what we need to attract right this very minute? But those two plans that are happening over there, sort of economic development initiatives, are 10-year plans. It means we're looking at the change of the world of work. In the culture sector, we're looking at if culture is a selling point when we go out looking for foreign direct investment in Toronto or anything, we can't just look at, are we properly funding not-for-profits? We have to look at the whole sector. I think it's very strategic, for instance, to place Maxine Bailey in a co-chair was a real statement to the sector that this goes beyond that narrow view of struggling not-for-profits to, are we building and growing the sector? Are we educating for it? Are we building the audience and the businesses within the sector? And that it has to include both for-profit things that people think of the screen-based industry more of, and the not-for-profit sector, because certainly once you go to work in those sectors, you move back and forth across them. Especially in the visual and theater arts, you're gonna get a spot on a television show, and then you'll be at the Tarragon Theater next month. So it all has to be together there. And placing Maxine in the chair was to make sure that you do get considered in that. And when we say space, we don't just mean rehearsal space for a play. We mean the whole thing. And so you'll get covered there. At the same time, though, cut to another earlier conversation, Councillor Fletcher's yeoman's worked for years on the studio district and what you just heard about the McCleary plan. In the economic development plan, when we look at what are the employment sectors that we need to focus on in the city, the film sector is not going to go away for a long time. So planning out that sector and having a strategy to make sure that there's space, and that Toronto Global, our economic development corporation, also thinks of the film sector as something they're supposed to attract. You'll get covered there as well. So having, I think, the Film and Television Advisory Board here being really clear about what they want and what that means we can then use that as a check and balance to make sure that that's really reflected in the overall plan that the City Council is going to adopt as their 2 10-year plans later in the fall. So they seem like, oh, is there overlap here? But it's really meant that one feeds the other, and make sure that you get not just mentioned, but really well covered. And the only other thing I would add, Madam Chair, is the good news piece that you can thank all of council for. One of the things that we added at the end, so often we build all these strategies and then say, thank you everyone who came in from the outside to advise on these, and now we have a lovely plan and one day we might fund it. In fact, there is seed money to actually act on whatever we develop here that begins in the last quarter of this year. In council's budget, what they adopted is that there's a $500,000 waiting for economic development at the end of the year, so that as council adopts it, we can start right away. You know, if you want something done that requires a consultant, Mr. Tobin and Marguerite have the ability to deal with it. Likewise, in the culture sector, there's $800,000 there, so that they can begin right away. It won't just be a plan on paper, it's implementable from the get-go. And then soon after that, we'll do the 2025 budget, so that if these plans are really ambitious and really hope to light a fire in these areas, we'll be able to consider we'll have funds immediately, and if we need to build on those funds, we can look at that soon after in the first quarter of 2025. So that's the add-on piece, just to motivate people to be more involved in the development of these plans. They actually have funds behind them. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Just comment, we always have a lot of funds because this is a very rich industry. $2.5 billion, lots of studios money. We can get together and do things, and we've proven that. Cynthia, did you have your hand up again?
So thank you, Councillor Carroll, for that further explanation. I just wanted to then clarify, so in your timeline for the culture plan, we will hear back from you on July 5th. Is there still time after that presentation to the film board to make substantive input, or do you want to talk to people before that?
So yes, there will be, but there's also opportunities before too. So what we're going to do next is, so we're currently wrapping up the main phase of our public engagement. We're going to be putting out a What We Heard report, likely in April or early May. And at that point, there will be opportunity for everyone to feed in about what we've heard in terms of our consultation, making sure we're headed on the right track. We're also committed internally to looking at, once we've completed the engagement, we're going to take a look at everybody we've spoken to. If there are gaps in sectors that haven't been as well represented as we'd like them to be, we're just going to go out and do more engagement, because we know we need to make sure we have all those voices covered. We're also going to be doing another round of engagement once we have our draft recommendations. So in addition to coming back to the film board, there will be an opportunity for anyone to feed in. We're likely going to be putting either a report up online or perhaps doing some sort of other public event to help share what we are considering as recommendations. So there will definitely be more opportunities to engage there as well.
Thank you. I just think that, and appreciate you being here with this today, and I didn't completely understand exactly how it's going to work. I just want to say that of all the kind of groups that are part of the culture piece. Some of them actually directly operated, the museums and other things of that nature, and the music industry, which I'm aware of, and the problems they have with venues. This is a very sophisticated, high-driven industry that has its own strat plan and has had that for a while, and I don't think anybody else has one. So starting at the same place, we can't start at the same place because we already have that. And I think that's what I'm hearing from you a bit, Cynthia, is how, oh, everybody's now doing their thing. Well, we've done our thing for quite a while, quite successfully. And also what I've noticed in this industry is when you're busy, you're so busy, sometimes you can't even come to meetings. So it's a driven industry. You're not here looking for grants. You're not here looking for work. You're here making sure that when there's work, things are as smooth as possible and that we're building in this industry. So I think we need to nest this a little differently from the film, television, and digital media side. When I'm looking at the advisory committees, there's nobody else that has a strat plan there that I know about that is driving an industry that has such an economic impact. So I think I've heard that, and I'd like to figure out how to make sure that we don't feel, or that film, this important industry, doesn't feel somehow as a box that's being checked, but whatever's happening coming back, it's being driven through this industry, that we're clear about our strategic plan, and it might actually be separated out. And I thought I should let everybody know that, because that's what, if you're disagree with me, let me know, because that's the direction that I will take as chair of this board. So I'm seeing some nods. You're disagreeing with me? No, you're not disagreeing. Oh, I see. Okay, fair. You're agreeing with me. Okay. So if that's kind of how we just want to make sure that the role is really clear in here, that would be a direction that we'd take back with you, Marguerite, as co-chairs, and get some of that and have that conversation about what that looks like for this industry as compared to the museums, as compared to the music industry, which is just desperately trying to save venues. We're building, we've got a lot of venues. We'd need more, but it's not where we're at. When we first started in this board, we didn't have venues, and our strategy brought venues and studios and everything else. Our workforce development plan, when we started that, it's very robust. So we're kind of ahead of everybody, including on the DEI side, in making things real. So actually, we're a good leader for your economic development plan because we've been at it for a while now. Anyway, that's the direction that I'm going to take from this board to make sure that it all fits really well. Is that good? Okay, thank you very much. Can I get a motion to receive this presentation, please? Thank you. From Sarah. All in favor? Opposed? Thanks very much. I mean, you may come back more than once. Ben.
We're always happy to.
We love you, and you write good strat plans.
I'll come anytime.
Thank you. Number 5, we have public appointments to the Film, Television, Digital Media Board, and I have 2 pieces of new business. So I think we should have done this at the beginning. I should have moved it up because Sarah Farrell is now new on the board, but you've been through the whole meeting without anybody being told that. And in December, I brought a member's motion to add Sarah to the board because Jinder had resigned, and then Sarah, of course, is from Pinewood, and we're very happy to have you here as part of one of our biggest and best studios, among the biggest and best. Thank you. So just a letter of welcome to you, and I don't think we have to approve anything, just acknowledging that's what's happened. Great.
No, but we could applaud.
What's that? You can applaud? Everybody with their
No, but we could applaud and say welcome.
Yes, welcome, Sarah. Thank you. We're very happy to have you here. Then I made a little mistake. I didn't have the minutes confirmed from the last meeting when we started, but we can fix that by a motion from from somebody. Who'd like to move that? There, Cynthia's moving those. All in favor? Opposed? Thank you very much. And just before we end, on a personal note, I know you know that Susan passed away, my longtime assistant, and many of you sent notes, condolences came to her, we call it a wake, like a party at the Duke. But, and thank you very much for that, because she did play a very big role, including in the strat plans, in getting all of those developed, and was very active. And some have asked, thank you for donations to Cancer Society. Others have asked, what can we do? And I think we're going to try to put a bench in a park, because she not only filmed, but she managed all the park files in a great way. So, but thank you very much. Just noting her passing here in this meeting today. And I think we're at the end, unless anybody else has any new business. Oh, we have to now acknowledge that a few people couldn't meet here, and I think Wendy has also said she couldn't be here, right? Oh, she's on now, okay.
I'm here.
Hi, Wendy.
I'm just being quiet today.
Okay.
Hi.
Thank you. Just motion, the Film, Television, Digital Media Board excuse the absence of John Rakich from March 1st, 2024 meeting of the board. Jason, would you like to move that?
I will.
All in favor? Opposed? And that's carried. And that concludes our business for today. Thank you for participating. We'll meet again on May the 16th. Thanks a lot. Have a great day and a great weekend.
Have a great weekend, everybody.
Thanks, Madam Chair.
July 5th. Well, I'm having a meeting on May 16th, if you want to join me.
July 5th.
In my notes, it says,
16th and then July 5th.
apparently, we're going to let you know, but
Yes.
keep that date. Apparently,
May
there's two,
16th, then
May
July 5th.
16th and July 5th. If we don't need the May 16th meeting, we'll just go to July 5th, but we might want to do more work on the strat plan there. Thank you. Thanks, everybody.